We're joined now by Ohio Republican Congressman Mike Turner. It is good to have you here, Congressman. I know you are a friend to Ukraine. Senator Graham certainly was. As I mentioned, he was so excited about finally getting to move this sanctions and tariffs bill. Do you think that this will go forward without a champion like him behind it?
Well, let's hope. Let's hope, as you had indicated, that is one of the legacies, that the Senate will move his bill. You know, I was at the NATO summit with Lindsey Graham and other senators last week, Senator Shaheen, Coons, Durbin, Rounds, and as we met with Zelensky, Lindsey Graham was making the point of the need for this sanctions bill that has passed the House and that I've co-sponsored and that should pass the Senate, that Lindsey has been such a champion for. It was his bill. You know, what's so sad about losing Lindsey is that, in this debate now that we have of America first, you can be America first and still understand that it doesn't have to be America alone, that, allies want America's voice. America's voice is important. America needs to stand for freedom and democracy and liberty. And that's what they saw in the voice of Lindsey Graham, in McCain's voice and Reagan's voice. And what they saw in Lindsey was someone who was willing to stand up and say, you're not alone. America is with you. We're not going to do it for you. We're not going to come in and decide for you, but you're not going to be alone. And he was that voice with Ukraine, having just gone to Ukraine, saying we're going to be with you. And this bill would be an important symbolism to say we're going to be with Ukraine. And I certainly hope the Senate moves it this week and we can put it on the president's desk this week. As you had said earlier, he had been in touch with you and said he believed he had movement from the White House for that bill. We should pass this bill, put it on the president's desk.
Do you know if Republican leadership has consider that at all at this point?
I don't. I know that we certainly have the news where they had just said upon our return from the NATO summit that they believed that they could move this in the Senate. The House has already passed a version of this bill, so I know there's broad support. There were more than a veto-proof number of senators who co-sponsored it. With the White House's support, this bill could be on the president's desk this week.
Let me ask you as well about NATO. You had voted for a bill years ago, CATSA, we'll call it, that would challenge what Turkey had done, which was buy this Russian weapon system. And President Trump said this week that he's okay with lifting some of the sanctions and letting Turkey have the F-35 fighter. How could that happen and not violate the law that you supported?
All right, so you're speaking of the S-400, which is the Russian air defense system that Turkey had purchased. And during that time, Congress had passed, which had been signed into law, a bill that would restrict the president's ability.
In the first Trump administration.
Right, and to waive sanctions that were placed on Turkey, including, it had taken them out of the F-35 program. Turkey has signaled that they are now in a position that they want to comply with that bill that would put them in a position where the S-400 would no longer be an impediment to their entering back into the F-35 program. I certainly hope that occurs.
They'll sell it to
the information, I can't disclose what they had told to us, but it's very promising. Of all the senators, we agreed together that we would be able to publicly say what we heard was very promising. And Senator Shaheen has said, she was one of the original authors of this. She believes it's promising. If they do this, and to get them back in the F-35 program is incredibly important. They're a member of NATO, a very strong member of NATO, having just, of course, hosted the summit, which was very successful. I certainly hope that they follow through and that they do so in a manner that returns them. They were also a producer of parts for the F-35, so entering back into production would be very, very important.
I want to ask you about some other things on the domestic front as well. Late Friday, Homeland Security made an announcement that they're going to change, they want states to change the way that elections are conducted, or if states refuse, they'll lose millions in federal terrorism prevention funds. So there were a list of things in there, including switching to paper ballots, which nearly every single state has a paper backup system at this point. What do you think of this federal pressure to get states to change their elections?
Right. So I'm not really familiar with this announcement. Obviously there is concern in Congress of federal intervention on the election
as a conservative,
side,
you must.
on the state side. But at the same time, there is also, or America First, provisions of the bills that are moving through the House that relate to ensuring that we have identification for people to prove that they're American citizens, mail ballots, as the president has made as a portion of his provisions that he's continues to.
He wants to change all these things.
All of those things are of concern, and certainly we have to address them.
You're how many days until the midterm elections? At this point, that's not really
the House
practical.
has passed these provisions several times, all of which I have voted for.
We
I
noticed
think
that.
I think the Senate does need to move these provisions.
But did you vote for it knowing that the Senate doesn't have the votes to actually make it become law? Vote yes, hope no.
I think the president is certainly making a very good case as to how these provisions need to become law, and I think that they are ones that will ensure for the American public, integrity in voting. Well,
non-citizens can't vote in federal elections. That became law in 1996.
The concern is how do you ensure that that's going that is
state
occurring,
does.
And we need to make certain that we ensure that occurs
at the state level.
I'll
let you go on that. But
having identification should be at least the way to ensure that we know who's voting.
Yes.
How do we have? I mean, there's so many things that you have to have identification for. How do you let someone vote and not even have an identification? I can't understand how anyone would be opposed to that. And this is one of those things where it's off the charts. The American public believe that people should have identification to vote. This should pass.
Yeah, and that's often required when you register. Very quickly, do you know what the plan is to deal with the Haitians who are having their temporary protected status revoked in Springfield, Ohio?
So as of Friday, there's been a short-term extension because of
the 24th of July.
So 2 weeks. The Margaret Brennan secretary has said that those individuals who are working, that they should look to as a manner in which they might be able to be included in other processes because they're contributing to society. Certainly, our governor, Mike DeWine, and myself and others who have individuals in our community who are going to be affected are certainly advocates for these individuals to be able to stay in our communities, who are working and contributing. They're valuable people in our community,
and
we certainly hope
Congress to extend
we certainly hope that they can
stay
stay and be able to contribute into our communities.
We're going to continue to track that and whether they have that hope beyond the 24th of July. Congressman, thank you.